Something happened to me, and to this day I can't understand it. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I work, or used to work, as an emergency medical technician in a small town in rural Oregon. 8 years in that role. 8 years seeing the worst of humanity in its most fragile moments. You learn to switch off, to not feel too much. It's the only way to survive in that job. That night, I was alone at the control center, the overnight shift, Tuesday, mid-April. The kind of night where nothing happens, where the silence is so heavy you can hear the hum of the fluorescent lights above your head. I liked those nights. No drama, no blood, no life or death decisions. It was 2:37 a.m. when the phone rang. Not the digital system, not the radio. The old landline phone, the one that sits in the corner of the room and that nobody has used for years. The ringing was high-pitched, almost shrill in the silence of the early morning. I looked at the computer screen. No incoming calls registered. Nothing. I answered anyway. Emergencies. What is the nature of the incident? Silence. But not an empty silence. It was dense, as if someone on the other end was holding their breath. Then, a female voice. Low. Trembling. Please. I need help. I'm bleeding heavily. Standard procedure. Stay calm. Gather information. What is your address, ma'am? She hesitated. Her breathing was heavy. Then she said, 1247 Maple Road, the Blue House. Please, hurry. Maple Road. I knew that street. It was on the outskirts of town, almost in the countryside. I wrote down the address, but something bothered me. I looked at the system again. No calls, no record. As if that call simply didn't exist. Ma'am, can you tell me what happened? He's coming. I need you to come now. And then she said something that froze my blood. Lucas, please. You're the only one who can help me. I never gave my name. And that phone didn't have caller ID. The call dropped. Dialing tone. Silence again. I stood there, frozen, holding the phone like an idiot. My heart was pounding. It didn't make sense. I checked the system 3 times. Nothing. No calls registered in the last 2 hours. I called the police dispatcher, asked if they'd received anything from Maple Road. Nothing, but she had said my name. I grabbed my jacket. I grabbed the ambulance keys. And I did the stupidest thing in my life. I decided to go there alone. The road to Maple Road was a straight line cutting through empty fields. No streetlights, only the ambulance headlights piercing the dense Oregon darkness. I was driving on autopilot, but my mind wouldn't stop. How did she know my name? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was someone I had treated before. Some old emergency. Patients sometimes remember you, even when you don't remember them. But that didn't explain the phantom call. It didn't explain the complete absence of a record in the system. My phone's GPS showed I was nearby, 1247 Maple Road. I slowed down, and then I saw... The house was set back from the road, almost hidden by gnarled trees and wild vegetation that seemed to have swallowed the garden decades ago. It was a 2-story wooden structure, painted blue. Or it had once been blue. Now the paint was peeling off in large flakes, exposing the gray, rotten wood underneath. The windows were broken. Some were boarded up with old planks. Others were just empty. Black holes staring out onto the street. I parked out front. I turned off the engine. Absolute silence. Not a single cricket chirp. Not a single wind. Nothing. That house was abandoned. Anyone could see that. There hadn't been any signs of life there for years, maybe decades. But the woman had said, she had asked for help. She had said my name. I grabbed the flashlight. I got out of the ambulance. The air was freezing, colder than it should have been in April. My breath came out in white clouds. I walked to the entrance. The wooden gate lay fallen on the ground. covered in moss. The tall grass brushed against my trousers as I strode through what had once been a garden. Each step made a muffled, damp sound. The front door was ajar. That made me stop, because everything there screamed, abandoned for years. But that door, it had been opened recently. I could see the marks on the wooden floor of the porch. Recent marks, as if someone had entered there just a few hours ago. "Hello?" My voice sounded weak. "This is emergency services. Did someone call?" Nothing. I pushed the door open slowly. It groaned on its rusty hinges, opening onto a dark hallway. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a dust-covered interior, cobwebs hanging from the ceiling like morbid curtains. But there were footprints in the dusty ground, fresh footprints, going inside. I went in. The smell hit me immediately. Mold, rotten wood, something sweet and nauseating that I couldn't identify. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet. My flashlight danced across the peeling walls, revealing remnants of floral wallpaper, framed photographs fallen on the floor, furniture draped in ghostly white sheets. "Hello? Did you call emergency services?" My voice echoed. And then, from upstairs, I heard a dragging sound, like something heavy being moved. And then, so low that I almost thought I imagined it. I went up. "I'm up here." It was the same voice from the phone. I looked at the staircase. Old, dark wood, climbing into the darkness of the second floor. Each step seemed about to collapse. Every rational fiber of my being screamed at me to get out of there, to call the police, to wait for reinforcements. But she had said my name. What if it was real? What if someone really needed help? I placed my foot on the first step. He groaned, but he endured it. I started to climb. Each step creaked like a warning. The staircase seemed endless, even though it was only one floor. My flashlight illuminated the path ahead. Stained walls, more dusty photographs of faces I didn't recognize, staring back at me through the broken glass of picture frames. I reached the top. A corridor stretched out on both sides, with closed doors on each side, except for one. The last door on the left was open, and a faint, flickering light came from inside. Like a candle. "I'm here," the voice called again. Too calm, too controlled for someone who was supposedly bleeding heavily. I walked to the door. My heart was pounding so loudly, I could hear it in my ears. Every instinct screamed danger, but I kept going. I went into the room. It was an old room, preserved as if time had stood still. A rusty iron bed in the corner, a cracked mirror on the wall, a rocking chair facing the window. And on the floor, sitting with her back against the wall, was she, a woman, maybe in her early 30s, dark hair falling over her face, wearing something that looked like a white dress, but it was stained, dark red on the sleeves, on her abdomen. Blood. But she didn't seem hurt, not in the way she should have been. "You came," she said, lifting her face. Her eyes met mine in the dim light. They were clear, almost transparent. "I knew you would come." I switched to professional mode. I approached her, kneeling beside her. "Where are you hurt? Let me see." She smiled. It wasn't a reassuring smile. "Don't you remember me, Lucas?" There I was again. My name. "No. Listen, we need to stop this bleeding. You need to go to the hospital." "August 2nd, 2019, she interrupted, her voice still calm. "You and Sarah argued that night. It was about the baby. She wanted it. You were afraid. You said things you couldn't take back." My blood froze. Sarah, my ex-wife. That particular fight, nobody knew about it. It was something between us. Private, painful, like you. "March 14th of this year," she continued, tilting her head. "You were alone at the call center, wondering whether you should answer her call. She wanted to talk. You hung up. You stared at the phone for 20 minutes afterward." My breath caught in my throat. This had happened 3 weeks ago. I was completely alone. "Who the hell are you?" She reached out her hand. Slowly, she touched my face. Her fingers were icy cold. "I am what you will find at the end of the road, Lucas. I am the witness." "Witness to what?" "Regarding his death. If this made you uncomfortable, wait for the next chapter." The room seemed to tilt. Or maybe it was me. I stepped back, moving away from her, my back hitting the opposite wall. "You're crazy. I'm going to May 7th, she said, and her voice echoed strangely in the confined space. 11:43 p.m., Route 22, near the old overpass. Your car will skid. You'll hit the guardrail. The impact will throw you against the steering wheel. Broken ribs, internal bleeding. You'll call emergency services." My mouth was dry. "But no one will answer in time, Lucas. You're going to die alone on that road, and I'll be there, watching." "This is crazy. This is not May 7th. That's a month and 4 days from now." She tilted her head, studying me. "You have time. Not much. But you do." I got up, staggering. I needed to get out of there. This was a trick. A mentally ill person. Some kind of stalker who had been investigating my life. But how? How did she know about that fight? About that moment alone at headquarters? I turned to leave. "Lucas." I stopped at the door. I didn't want to look back, but I did. She wasn't sitting anymore. She was standing, but I hadn't heard her get up. And the blood on the dress, it was spreading. Fresh. Dripping. "You'll try to avoid it," she whispered. "Everyone tries, but the road awaits you. It always has. Run." I rushed down those stairs, the steps creaking under my weight. I crossed the hallway. The front door was still ajar, and I flung it open, stepping out into the cold night air. But before reaching the ambulance, I heard one last time, my own voice, coming from inside the house, calling for help. I drove back to the power plant like a maniac, my hands trembling on the steering wheel, the speedometer reading well above the limit. I didn't call the police. I didn't call anyone, because what would I say? I answered a call that doesn't exist in the system, went to an abandoned house, and a woman asked me when I'm going to die. They would commit me to a mental institution, or fire me, or both. I arrived at the call center at 4:18 a.m. There were still 3 hours left in my shift. I sat in my chair, staring intently at the old phone in the corner. It was there, harmless, silent. But I had answered that call. I had gone to that house. I grabbed my phone. I searched on Google, 1247 Maple Road, Oregon. The results made my stomach churn. A news article from 1987. Tragedy on Maple Road. Woman found dead in abandoned house. The article was somewhat corrupted, an old scan, but I managed to read enough. An unidentified woman was found on the second floor. Her injuries were consistent with violent trauma. No suspects were arrested. The case was closed. The picture of the house in the article was exactly the house where I stayed. Peeling blue paint, broken windows, same structure. That was 38 years ago. My mind was racing. That woman couldn't be the same. It was impossible. But the details she knew about me, about Sarah, about that moment alone at headquarters. I spent the following days in a state of functional denial. I worked, I ate, I slept little. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those clear eyes staring at me. I heard my own voice screaming for help from inside that house. May 7th, Route 22, Old Viaduct. I avoided that route completely. I changed my paths. I planned every move so I would never pass near there. But then things started. Little things, details. On April 10th, I received a message from Sarah. She wanted to talk, to arrange a coffee. Despite everything, she still cared. I almost ignored it, but something made me accept. On the 15th, my car started making a strange noise. The mechanic said the brakes were worn out, dangerously worn out. Man, how have you been driving with that? You could have killed yourself. On the 22nd, my boss offered me time off for the first week of May. You look exhausted, Lucas. Take a few days off, rest. Each event, in isolation, was normal, a coincidence, but together, they formed a path. And I realized something terrifying. The more I tried to avoid that date, that road, the more life pushed me toward it. On the night of May 3rd, I couldn't take it anymore. I went back. I returned to 1247 Maple Road. The house was exactly as before, abandoned, silent, but this time the door was closed, locked. I screamed. I banged on the door. I broke a side window and went inside. Where are you? Who are you? My voice echoed empty. I climbed the stairs again. The same room, but empty now. No woman, no candle, no blood. Just a photograph on the floor. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was an old photo, from the 80s judging by the yellowish tone. A young woman, smiling, next to a man, and in the background, behind them, an ambulance, an old ambulance, but with the same logo as the company where I work. I turned the photo over. There was something handwritten on the back, in faded ink. For those who come after, the road remembers. It always remembers. My phone rang. I almost dropped the photo. It was Sarah. I answered with a cracked voice. Hi. Lucas? Are you okay? Your voice... I am. What is it? I just... know it's been difficult between us, but I saw you yesterday, driving along Route 22, and you seemed different, worried. I just wanted to know if everything was all right. My blood froze. Sarah. I didn't go down Route 22 yesterday. I've been avoiding that route for weeks. Silence on the other end. Lucas, I saw you, your car, I'm sure of it. What time? Around 11:40 p.m. 11:43. She had said 11:43. Sarah, I need to hang up. Lucas, wait. I hung up. I looked at the photo in my hands, at that ambulance in the background, and finally I understood. I wasn't trying to avoid my death. I was already dead, and the road was just waiting for me to realize it. The next 4 days were the longest of my life, or what was left of it. I stopped sleeping completely. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that road, the overpass. I felt the impact. I heard the sound of metal twisting, and I woke up sweating, breathless, certain that I had lived through that before. I researched everything I could about Route 22. I discovered that that specific stretch, near the old overpass, had a history, 6 deaths in the last 15 years, all in similar circumstances. Cars skidding without explanation, loss of control, fatal impact, and they all happened between 11:30 p.m. and midnight, all within the first 2 weeks of May. I read the names of the victims, ordinary people, a teacher, a nurse, a truck driver, a lawyer. Nothing connected these people, except one thing. They all worked night shifts, or were returning from late appointments. They were all alone. And then I found something that made my stomach turn. A footnote in an old newspaper article from 1987 about the woman found dead on Maple Road. The police mentioned that she had called emergency services before she died, but when they investigated, there was no record of the call, no record in the system, as if the connection had never existed. Exactly like mine. May 6th, Eve. I spent the day locked in my house. I turned off my cell phone. I locked the doors. I closed the curtains. If I didn't go out, I couldn't die on that road. Simple logic. But at 10:17 p.m., there was a knock at the door. My heart nearly stopped. I stood paralyzed in the room, staring at the door. The knocking came again, more insistent. Lucas, it's me. Sarah's voice. I opened the door slowly. She was there, in the dim light of the porch, with a worried expression. Sarah, what are you? Your boss called me. He said you haven't shown up for work for 2 days. You're not answering the phone. I'm worried about you. I'm fine. I just needed some time. She studied me with those eyes that already knew me so well. You're not feeling well. Can I come in? I let her in. I made coffee. We sat at the kitchen table in uncomfortable silence until she said, "Are you going to tell me what's going on?" And I told her. Everything. The call. The house. The woman. The forecast. The date. The road. As I spoke, I saw her expression change from concern to something between pity and alarm. When I finished, she held my hand. "Lucas, you need help. You're under a lot of stress. The divorce, work, loneliness. Maybe it's time to talk to someone, a therapist. Or, I'm not crazy, Sarah. I didn't say you're crazy. But people under extreme pressure can have episodes, see things, believe things that..." She knew about our fight. About that particular night. Nobody else knew. Sarah remained silent. Then she said softly, "I knew it, and you knew it. Sometimes, under stress, our minds can create scenarios based on our own memories and..." "No." I stood up. "But that's not what happened. It was real." "Then don't go." His voice was firm now. "If you truly believe you're going to die on that road tomorrow night, don't go. Simple as that. Stay home, or come stay with me. Just don't drive." I looked at her, and for a moment, I believed it could be that simple. But then my cell phone, which I had left on the counter, lit up. A notification. Sarah grabbed it before I could stop her. His face paled. "Lucas, what is this?" She turned the screen towards me. It was a message from an unknown number. "The road awaits you, 11:43 p.m. You always knew." And below, an attached photo. It was me, outside my ambulance, on Route 22, next to the overpass. But the photo was dark, like it was from nighttime. And in the lower right corner, there was a date stamp, May 7th, 11:51 p.m. 8 minutes later than she had predicted. "How..." Sarah dropped the phone as if it were burning. "How is this possible?" I picked up my phone. I looked at the photo, and I realized something even more terrifying. In the picture, I wasn't alone. There was a silhouette in the passenger seat, blurred, but clearly a woman, wearing a white dress stained with red. The message arrived again. Same number. "You can't run away from what has already happened." Sarah looked at me, tears in her eyes. "Lucas, what are we going to do?" And I realized there was no choice. There never was, because that road, that house, that woman, they weren't about the future. It was about a loop, an echo, something that had already happened and kept happening, repeatedly, trapped somewhere between time and death. And I was just next in line. May 7th has arrived. I spent the whole day with Sarah. We tried to act normally. We watched movies. We cooked together. We laughed at old jokes, as if we could cheat fate with normalcy. But at 11:15 p.m., my phone rang. The emergency call center. "Lucas, I know you're off duty, but we've had a serious accident. Route 22, near the overpass. Victim trapped in the wreckage. I need you to go. You're the closest person." My voice cracked. I can't. Lucas, the victim is asking for you. Specifically. Said your name." The phone almost slipped out of my hand. How does she know my name? I don't know. But she's dying. Please. I hung up. I looked at Sarah. She was already crying. "Don't go. Please don't go." But we both knew. I grabbed my keys. I arrived at Route 22 at 11:39 p.m. The overpass lay ahead, empty, dark, no accidents, no victims, just the road, waiting. I continued driving. And then, in the rearview mirror, I saw it. She was in the back seat, the woman of the house, light eyes, dress stained with blood. "You came," she whispered. I lost control. The car skidded. The side barrier moved too fast. The impact, pain, darkness. My cell phone falling onto the floor of the crumpled car. With trembling fingers, I managed to dial. "Emergencies. Please. I need help. I'm bleeding heavily." The voice on the other end was young, hesitant. "What is your address, Quine, sir?" And with my last breath, I said, 1247 Maple Road. "The blue house. Please. Hurry." Because I finally understood. The road was not where I would die. That's where I've always been. And now, it was my turn to wait. For the next person to answer the call that doesn't exist. Something happened to me, and to this day I can't understand it. My name doesn't matter now. What matters is that I've been working as a paramedic in Boston for 4 years. Night shifts, always night shifts. You get used to the darkness, to the silence broken only by static on the radio, to the pale faces under the ambulance lights. You get used to death too. At least, that's what I thought. I was alone in the unit that Tuesday, almost 3 in the morning. My partner had requested medical leave, typical of November in Boston. That damp cold that seeps into your bones, fog clinging to the windows, the radio crackled. Unit 47, we have a call, cardiac arrest, 1124 Ashmont Street, apartment 3B. Male victim, approximately 60 years old, Ashmont Street, Dorchester. It wasn't even my usual area, but with the reduced staff, I went. The building was one of those dark brick ones, probably from the 1950s. Peeling facade, a flickering light bulb in the hallway. I climbed the stairs with my emergency kit. The silence was too dense, no neighbors awake, no sound of TV or arguments, only my footsteps echoing. The door to room 3B was ajar. "Hello? Samu, did someone call an ambulance?" Nothing. I pushed the door open slowly. The apartment smelled of mildew, old paper, and something sweet I couldn't quite identify. The living room was dark, with only a dim lamp illuminating the corner. And there, on the floor, between the coffee table and the worn-out sofa, was he. A man of about 60 years old, white shirt stained with sweat, dark dress pants, lying on his back, arms at his sides, eyes open. I knelt beside him, touched his neck, searching for a pulse. His skin was warm, too warm for someone dead, but there was no heartbeat. I placed my fingers on his carotid artery again. Nothing. Then I realized he was looking at me. No, it's not possible. Dead people don't look. But his eyes were fixed on me, glazed, yes, but directed, as if he were waiting for me. I tried CPR even though I knew it was too late. I pressed on his chest, rigid ribs, no response. Ventilation, nothing. 15 minutes of protocol. I broke out in a cold sweat. The apartment seemed smaller and smaller, the air heavier. I stopped. I picked up the radio. At Central Tower, Unit 47. Victim without vital signs. Death confirmed at the scene. Silence on the radio. Then, the operator's monotonous voice. Received 47. Police on the way. I stood there, waiting. I looked around. The apartment was too empty. No photos. No food in the kitchen. No clothes on the hangers. As if no one really lived there. I looked at the body again. His eyes were still open, still fixated on me. I left the apartment before the police arrived. I know I shouldn't have, but something about that place, something wasn't right. And for the first time in 4 years, I felt afraid of a dead body. I spent the next 3 days trying to forget, trying to convince myself it was just another bad call. It happens. You arrive late, the person's already gone, you fill out the report and move on. That's work. But I couldn't get that face out of my head. The eyes. Those damned eyes. On Friday, I went back to the night shift. 1 in the morning. A light rain pattered against the ambulance windshield. I was parked near the hospital, drinking reheated coffee, when the radio crackled again. Unit 47, emergency call, cardiac arrest, 1124 Ashmont Street, apartment 3B. I dropped the coffee in my lap. No, it couldn't be. Same address, same apartment. Central. Can you confirm the address? 1124 Ashmont. Confirmed. 47. Male victim, approximately 60 years old. Call received 2 minutes ago. My heart raced. I turned on the siren and drove on autopilot. My mind a mess. Maybe it was someone else. Maybe someone had moved in. Maybe... I arrived in 8 minutes. The building was exactly the same. Same flickering light. Same oppressive silence. I climbed the stairs with heavy legs, each step seeming to drain my energy. The door to room 3B was ajar. Again, I pushed slowly, entering the dark room. The same dim lamp. The same smell of mold and old paper. And there, on the floor, between the coffee table and the worn-out sofa, it was him. The same man. Same white shirt. Same dark pants. Same pose. Arms at his sides, legs slightly apart. And the eyes. Eyes open, staring at me. My hand trembled as I picked up the flashlight. I shone the light on his face up close. Every detail was identical. The stubble, the sweat stain on his collar, the deep wrinkle between his eyebrows. I touched his skin. Hot, just like before. But he had been dead for 3 days. I saw the police arrive. I filled out the report. No, 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 no. I searched for a pulse. Trembling. Nothing. I placed the stethoscope on his chest. Absolute silence. Not a heart murmur. Not a breath. Dead. Completely dead. But the body was warm. I looked around. Desperate. The apartment was different. Dirtier. Dust accumulated on the furniture. Cobwebs in the corners. As if no one had been there for months. But last time it was just empty. I picked up the radio with sweaty hands. Central, Unit 47. I need to confirm something. There was a call to this address last Tuesday. Long pause. Static. Negative, 47. No record of calls to Ashmont Street in the last 10 days. This isn't right. I was here. I answered that call. 47. No record in the system. Are you okay? Do you need support? I turned off the radio. I looked at the body again. His lips moved. No, impossible. Only a post-mortem muscle. Only... He whispered something. So softly I almost didn't hear it. You arrived late. Again. I ran out of the apartment. I stumbled down the stairs, bumped into the handrail, and slammed the front door shut. The rain was beating in my face, but I barely felt it. I got into the ambulance, locked the doors, and took a deep breath, or tried to. My mind was spinning. Same body, same place, same death. But nobody else knew about it except me. I didn't sleep. How could I? I sat in my apartment kitchen until sunrise, staring at the cup of cold coffee in front of me, trying to rationalize, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe I was exhausted. 4 years of night shifts would wear anyone down. Maybe it was post-traumatic stress. I'd seen too much. Accidents, overdoses, dead children. Maybe my brain was finally giving out. But that voice... You're late again. I called the hospital and asked for 3 days off. The supervisor didn't even question it. My voice must have made it clear that I wasn't feeling well. I spent the entire Saturday trying not to think about it. I watched TV without paying attention. I tried to eat. I took a cold shower. Nothing worked. My mind kept returning to that apartment, to those eyes. On Sunday morning, I gave up trying to escape. I opened my laptop and searched 1124 Ashmont Street, Boston. Nothing. No official record. The address simply didn't exist on city maps, as if that building were a ghost. I tried another angle. I called the Dorchester Police Department, identified myself as a paramedic, and asked about body removals in the area over the past 7 days. No records, sir. Ashmont had no incidents this week. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I got up and went to the living room cupboard. Deep inside, in dusty boxes, were my grandmother's things. She had died 2 years ago, and I never had the courage to go through everything. Old photos, letters, documents. I don't know why I went there. Maybe I needed something familiar, something real. I opened the first box. Photo albums from the 80s and 90s. My grandmother when she was young, my grandfather whom I never met, distant relatives. I leafed through them distractedly, looking at smiling faces at summer barbecues, old Christmases, graduations. So I stopped. A photo from 1987. My grandmother was in a backyard, next to 2 other people, and a man was standing behind them, slightly out of focus, looking directly at the camera. My stomach churned. It was him. The man from the apartment. Younger, maybe in his early 30s, but it was him. The same angular face, the same blank expression, the same eyes. I turned the photo over. On the back, handwritten in my grandmother's handwriting, Summer, 87, farewell barbecue. Peter is leaving. Peter. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the blood pulsing in my ears. I searched through other boxes, desperate. I found 2 more photos. Always him in the background, always slightly out of focus, always looking at the camera. In the last photo, from 1989, my grandmother had written on the back, "Peter has disappeared. No one knows where. May God protect him." I sat on the living room floor, breathing rapidly. My cell phone vibrated. Message from the hospital. Automated system call. Unit needed. Cardiac arrest. 1124 Ashmont Street. No. Not again. I blocked the number. I turned off my cell phone. But the doorbell rang. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. Nobody. The doorbell rang again, more insistently. I opened the door slowly. The hallway was empty, but on the ground, in front of the door, there was a folded piece of paper. I picked it up with a trembling hand. I opened it. It was a medical report. My name was at the top. Date, last Tuesday, and below, handwritten in red pen, patient, Peter Dalton, death, 3:17 a.m. Cardiac arrest. Paramedic arrived 18 minutes after the call. Below that, a scribbled phrase, "Too late. As always. If this made you uncomfortable, wait for the next chapter." I locked all the doors, all the windows. I pushed a chair against the front door and sat in the living room, lights on, staring at that piece of paper. Peter Dalton, my grandmother's friend. He disappeared in 1989, and now he was dead in an apartment that doesn't exist, waiting for me. 3 in the morning. My cell phone vibrated even though it was turned off. Impossible, but it happened. The screen lit up by itself, maximum brightness, burning my eyes in the darkness. A notification, new address, 1124 Ashmont Street. I threw the phone on the sofa. It vibrated again, and again, and again, faster and faster, like a heart pounding in panic. Then he stopped. Silence returned. That heavy, dense silence that presses on the eardrums. And the ambulance radio, which I had left on the kitchen table, crackled. "Unit 47, emergency call." I walked to the kitchen, mesmerized. The radio was off. No battery. But the voice continued. Victim waiting. You're late. Always late. I unplugged the radio. I removed the batteries. The voice continued, now lower, more intimate, as if whispering directly in my ear. Ashmont Street, come now. No, I wouldn't go. Not this time. I sat on the kitchen floor, hugging my knees, trying to control my breathing. I counted to 10, to 100. I closed my eyes. When I opened the door, I was no longer in the kitchen. I was standing in front of the dark brick building, 1124 Ashmont Street. I don't remember leaving the house. I don't remember driving. But there I was, barefoot, wearing only a t-shirt and sweatpants, the November cold cutting into my skin. The front door was open. I went up the stairs. My feet were numb, but I kept going. Apartment 3B. Door ajar. Always ajar. I pushed. The room was different this time. Era my room. My worn-out sofa. My TV. My coffee table with coffee mug stains. My grandmother's boxes stacked in the corner. And on the floor, between the sofa and the table, was a body. I approached slowly, each step feeling like wading through icy water. The body was lying on its back. White shirt, dark pants. I recognized those clothes. I walked around the table to see the face. It was me, my own face, eyes open, fixed on the ceiling, skin warm, no pulse, dead, but not yet cold. I fell to my knees. My mind screamed, but no sound came out. So the body, Themibody, turned its head. Dead eyes stared back at me. And he spoke, in my voice, but hoarse and distant. You're always too late. I tried to back away, but my legs wouldn't respond. He continued. 18 minutes. That's how long you took. Peter died waiting for you. He called you. He begged you. But you were too tired to answer quickly. No. I didn't know. You always knew. You always felt it. But you chose the slower path, the easier route, the coffee before the call. And he died. Alone. Scared. Waiting. Tears streamed down my face. Memories returned, fragmented, distorted. That Tuesday. The first call. Me. He had stopped for coffee. Had argued with headquarters about the route. Had wasted time. 18 minutes. And now, the body whispered, you'll understand what it's like to wait. Forever. He reached out his hand, my own hand, and touched my face. The room went dark. I felt cold. Very cold. And then, nothing. I woke up on the floor of my apartment, daylight streaming in through the windows. Monday, 11:27 a.m. on the wall clock. I got up, staggering. Everything seemed normal. Kitchen in place, sofa in place, no bodies, no blood. But when I looked in the bathroom mirror, I saw something that froze me. My eyes. They were slightly opaque, like Peter's. I went back to work on Wednesday. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stay home. The apartment seemed to be watching me. The walls whispered when I tried to sleep. And the mirrors. I avoided the mirrors. My colleagues noticed something was wrong. I barely spoke. I just followed protocol. I answered calls. I saved whoever I could save. I documented who had already passed away. But every night, at 3:17 in the morning, the radio crackled. Unit 47, Ashmont Street. I ignored it. I turned off the radio. I took off my headphones. But the voice lingered in my head. You're late again. 2 weeks later, I started researching. Old hospital files, records from 1989. I found something buried in microfilm that no one had ever digitized. Peter Dalton, 34 years old. Sudden cardiac arrest. Called an ambulance at 2:59 a.m. The unit arrived at 3:17 a.m., 18 minutes. The paramedic in charge documented, victim showed no vital signs upon arrival. Presumed death at 3:10 a.m. 7 minutes. If they had arrived 7 minutes earlier, maybe... The paramedic's name was blurred on the chart, illegible, but underneath, a handwritten note. The patient was a friend of the technician's family. No conflict of interest declared. My grandmother never told me. She never said she knew the paramedic. She never said Peter died waiting for someone who could have arrived faster. And now I was trapped in his place. On Friday, at 3 in the morning, the call came again. Unit 47, cardiac arrest, 1124, Ashmont Street. This time, I went. I drove silently through the empty city. No sirens, no hurry. As if I were going to a date I'd arranged a long time ago. The dark brick building was there. It always has been. It always will be. I climbed the stairs slowly. The lamp was no longer flickering. It was off. Only my flashlight cut through the darkness. Apartment 3B. The door was wide open this time. I went in. The room was empty. No furniture, no bodies, just dust and darkness. But in the center, where the body always lay, there was something written on the floor in white chalk. You've arrived. Finally. A presence moved behind me. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. I knew who it was. Peter spoke, not with his mouth, but directly into my mind. Do you understand now? It's not about dying. It's about waiting. Waiting for someone who never arrives in time. Waiting until your last breath. Waiting and knowing that you could have been saved. I closed my eyes. Hot tears streamed down my face. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry for taking so long. I'm so sorry for not being quick enough. Silence settled in. Heavy. Absolute. When I opened my eyes, Peter was standing in front of me. He was no longer the empty-eyed corpse. He was the man from the photos, young, alive, but with an infinite sadness in his gaze. He put his hand on my shoulder. Now you carry the weight. Just like I carried it. Just like we all carry it. All. He pointed to the hallway. I left the apartment. The other doors were open. 3A, 3C, 4B, each revealing an empty room with a body on the floor. Different faces, different ages, but all with the same opaque eyes. Everyone's waiting. Each one who dies waiting for help, Peter whispered. He gets stuck. Not in hell, not in paradise, but in the exact moment between hope and despair, waiting forever. How do I get out of this? I asked, my voice breaking. He smiled sadly. You don't leave, you accept. And when someone needs you, you arrive on time. He disappeared. I went down the stairs alone. I got into the ambulance. The radio was silent now. I drove back home as the sun rose over Boston. I didn't resign. I didn't run away. Because now I understand. Every call matters. Every second matters. Every life waiting in the darkness matters. I'll never be late again, even if it means that a part of me remained trapped in that apartment. In that moment. In those empty eyes staring back at me. Yesterday, I received a photo in the mail. No return address, just an old, faded picture. It was a photo of my grandmother, 1989. On the back, her handwriting, Peter is gone, and a part of us went with him. Beneath that, a different handwriting, recent, shaky. Now it's your turn to load. I look at the photo, no uniform bag, and every night at 3:17 a.m., I hear the whispers, waiting, always waiting. I promised I'd never tell, but this secret is destroying me. My name is Lucas. I've worked as a paramedic for 8 years. I've seen things most people will never see. Overdoses, brutal accidents, bodies that barely look human. I thought nothing else could affect me. I was wrong. It was 2:37 a.m. when the radio crackled. Emergency call. Elderly woman. Possible stroke. Rural address 40 kilometers from the city. Mountainous area. No cell phone coverage. One of those areas where the houses are so isolated that you can shout and no one will hear you. My partner was sick that night. I went alone. The road was a straight line cutting through the darkness. Dense forest on both sides. Fog so thick that the ambulance's headlights seemed useless. Only trees appearing like ghosts and disappearing in the rearview mirror. No other cars, no houses, no life. The GPS stopped working about 15 kilometers from my destination. I kept following the signs, but they were old, rusty, some lying on the side of the road. I started to wonder if anyone actually lived in that area. Then I saw the house. It was old. 2 stories, dark wood, sloping roof. It stood at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by trees that seemed to lean over it, as if they wanted to swallow the entire structure. No lights on, no cars in the driveway. Just the house and the silence. I parked the ambulance and turned off the engine. The silence that followed was suffocating. No wind, no crickets, nothing. I grabbed the first aid kit and went downstairs. The air was freezing. My breath came out in white clouds. I climbed the 3 steps to the porch. The wood creaked under my weight. The front door was ajar. "Hello? Paramedic? Did someone call an ambulance?" I shouted, banging on the door. Nothing. I pushed the door open slowly. It groaned, revealing a dark hallway. The smell was strange. It wasn't mold or decay. It was emptiness. As if nothing living had breathed there in a long time. I went in. The living room was to the right. Old furniture, covered with dusty cloths. An unlit fireplace. Photos on the walls, but too dark to see the faces. I turned on my flashlight and swept the room. That's when I saw it. On the coffee table, a stack of papers. Yellowed pages, some with dark stains on the edges. It looked like reports. Handwritten. I approached, my heart beating faster without me knowing why. I picked up the first sheet, and I started reading. My hand trembled as I held the first sheet. It was a service report, handwritten in hurried handwriting, almost illegible in some parts. At the top of the page, a date, March 23rd, 2024, 6 months ago. Call received at 2:37 a.m. Elderly woman, possible stroke. Address, 1847 Hollow Creek Road. I arrived alone. My partner was ill. The road was covered in fog. The GPS stopped working. My stomach tightened. That was exactly what had happened to me, word for word, detail by detail. I continued reading, sweat starting to trickle down the back of my neck despite the cold. I parked the ambulance. The front door was ajar. I went in. I found the stack of papers on the table. I read the first report. My heart raced. He was describing what I was doing now. I turned the page, my hands trembling. The writing continued. I went upstairs. The hallway was dark. I heard breathing coming from the room at the end. I opened the door. She was on the bed, her back to me. I touched her shoulder. When she turned her face, the sentence ended there, abruptly, and there was a dark stain spread across the rest of the page. Brown, dry, old, blood. I dropped the paper on the table, taking a step back. My breathing was rapid. This made no sense. Was it some kind of joke? A macabre prank? But my eyes were drawn to the other papers in the pile. There was more, many more. I picked up the second report. Different date, April 15th, 2024. Same story, same details, same sequence of events. I arrived alone. The door was ajar. I found the papers. I read about the previous paramedic. I went upstairs, and it always ended the same way, in the middle of a sentence, with a dark stain. Third report, May 2nd, 2024. Fourth report, June 19th, 2024. Fifth report, July 8th, 2024. All of them, all describing the same thing, all ending abruptly, all with dark stains. Different paramedics, different names I didn't recognize. But the story was always the same, and none of them seemed to have left here. My hands were sweating. I grabbed my radio, trying to call the hospital. Static. I tried again. More static. I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket. No signal, obviously. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. There had to be a logical explanation. Maybe they were all pranks. Maybe someone lived here and did it for sick amusement. Maybe. That's when I heard a sound coming from above. Breathing, heavy, dragging, as if someone were struggling to breathe. I froze, the flashlight trembling in my hand. The breathing continued, slow, rhythmic, coming from upstairs. I looked at the stairs. I swallowed hard. I picked the last report from the pile, the most recent one. Date, December 28th, 2024. 3 days ago. I heard the breathing. I knew I shouldn't go up. But something forced me, as if there was no choice, as if I needed to go there. The handwriting became increasingly shaky. "Do not go up the stairs," written in capital letters, almost tearing the paper. "She is not alone." My blood ran cold. The breathing up there grew louder. And then, footsteps. Boards. Going down the hallway on the second floor. If this made you uncomfortable, wait for the next chapter. The footsteps stopped. I stood in the middle of the room. The flashlight pointed at the ceiling, as if it could pierce the wood and reveal what was up there. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Silence. Just my breathing. Quick. Shallow. I looked at the stack of papers on the table. I had to have more information. Some clue about what happened to those paramedics. Some way to get out of here. I skimmed through the reports again, faster this time, looking for anything different, any warning, any way out. In the second to last account, I found something written in the margin, in tiny, cramped handwriting. I tried the front door. It won't open. I tried the windows. Locked. There's no way out once you're inside. My stomach churned. I ran to the front door. I turned the doorknob. She didn't move. I pulled hard. I pushed. I banged my shoulder against the wood. Nothing. The door was locked, but there was no bolt. No lock on the inside. Just stuck. As if the house itself were holding it shut. "No, no, no, no," I whispered, trying again. The windows. I ran to the nearest window. I pulled back the dusty curtains. The glass was dark, covered in a thick layer of dirt. I tried to push the frame open. It didn't move. I hit the glass with the flashlight. It didn't even crack. I rushed back to the table, desperately flipping through the accounts. There had to be something. Some pattern, some way of... I stopped. At the bottom of the pile, there was a different story. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible. The date was blurred, but what caught my attention was the text. "She's not real. The woman upstairs. She's not a patient. She's bait." My mouth went dry. Something lives in this house. Something that needs us. I don't know why, but every time someone enters, the house feeds itself, absorbs. I don't know. I only know that nobody leaves. The writing became increasingly desperate. I saw the others. They're still here, in the corners, in the shadows, waiting. My vision blurred. I blinked, trying to focus. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you go up or not. The house has already decided. The moment you walk through the door, you already belong to it. I dropped the paper. My knees buckled. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. This couldn't be real. It couldn't. But my mind was already connecting the dots, the dates of the reports, all spaced out by weeks. As if the house were waiting, as if it needed time between what? Between meals, the names in the reports. I tried to remember if I'd heard of missing paramedics, but I'd never heard anything. as if nobody knew, as if they simply had never existed. The sound of breathing returned, higher now, closer, coming from the stairs. I shone the flashlight toward the hallway. Nothing, just darkness, and that sound, that heavy, wet breathing, as if someone were drowning in their own air. I tried the radio again, even though I knew it was useless. Central. This is Unit 12. I need immediate backup. 1847 Hollow Creek Road. Situation. My voice faltered. Critical situation. Please respond. Static only. The breathing became heavier. And then, a voice. Weak, distant, coming from above. Help. Please. Help. It was the voice of an elderly woman. Frail. Desperate. Exactly what a stroke patient would be like. I looked at the stairs. I knew I shouldn't go up. All the reports said not to go up. But my body started to move. One step, then another. My feet moved on their own, as if something were pulling me, as if the house were guiding me. I tried to stop. I couldn't. I reached the bottom of the stairs. The voice called again. Please, I'm alone. I need help. I placed my foot on the first step. The wood groaned, and I started to climb. If you've listened this far, comment. I heard the whispers. Each step creaked beneath my feet. The staircase seemed endless, as if it was stretching out as I climbed. My flashlight illuminated only a few meters ahead. The rest was just darkness. Breathing had stopped. The silence was worse. I reached the top of the stairs. A hallway stretched out before me. Doors were closed on both sides. Wallpaper was peeling. There was a smell of mildew and something else, something sweet and rotten at the same time. Only one door was ajar. At the end of the hallway. Hello? My voice came out shaky. I'm a paramedic. I'm here to help. No response. I walked down the hallway, each step seeming to echo eternally. The closed doors seemed to watch me. I felt the urge to open them, but something told me not to just keep going. The half-open door revealed a dimly lit room. There were no lamps on, but a faint, bluish light came from somewhere I couldn't identify, as if the walls themselves emanated that sickly glow. I pushed the door open slowly. She opened it without making a sound. The room was simple. A double bed in the center, an old wardrobe, a rocking chair in the corner, and on the bed, a woman, lying on her side, her back to me, gray hairs spread across the pillow, wearing a white nightgown, motionless. "Mom," I stepped forward. "My name is Lucas. I'm a paramedic. I'm going to check your vital signs, okay?" She didn't answer. It didn't move. I approached the bed, placing the first aid kit on the floor. My hand reached for her shoulder, ready to turn her over and check her breathing. I touched her skin. It was cold. Ice cold. I turned it over slowly. Your face. God. Your face. The eyes were open, but they were completely white. No irises, no pupils, just milky white, fixed on me. The mouth was open, gaping at an impossible angle, as if the jaw had been dislocated. But she wasn't dead. The mouth moved, and she whispered, "You came." I stepped back, tripping over my own suitcase. She didn't blink. She didn't close her mouth. She just kept staring at me with those empty eyes. "You are next." My blood froze. That's when I realized. The corners of the room, Havia Figuras Ali, stops, real estate. Dark silhouettes, almost transparent, but solid enough to block the dim light. Obscure faces, no defined features, just human forms, watching. I counted 5, 6, 7. They're all looking at me. One of them stepped forward. He was wearing a paramedic uniform. "No," I whispered. Another one moved, also in uniform. They were the others. The paramedics from the stories, trapped here, waiting. The woman in bed began to sit up. Her movements were erratic. Joints were cracking. Bones were popping, as if her body were a poorly controlled puppet. She turned her head toward me. Her neck made a wet, horrible sound. "You, stay. With us. Run." I walked through the door, stumbled in the hallway, almost fell on the stairs. I descended the steps 2 at a time, the flashlight swinging wildly, casting distorted shadows on the walls. I heard it behind me. Steps. Many steps. Going down the stairs. Boards. Methodical. They were in no hurry. I arrived in the living room. I ran to the front door. I pulled with all my might. Nothing. "Open up! Open up! Damn it!" I yelled, pounding on the wood. The door didn't budge. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. I turned around. They were all there. The silhouettes. The paramedics. And in the middle of them, the woman, dragging himself along, his mouth still open, his white eyes fixed on me. She pointed a bony finger in my direction. "Right." His voice was a hoarse whisper, coming from somewhere deep inside. "Right. For the next one." My gaze went to the table, the reports, and next to them, a pen, as if he were waiting for me. They approached, slowly, surrounding me. I picked up the pen with trembling hands. A blank sheet of paper appeared on top of the pile. It hadn't been there before. I started writing. "My name is Lucas. I arrived at 2:37 a.m. I wasn't the first." The silhouettes stopped, observing, waiting for me to finish. I continued writing, tears blurred in the words. "If anyone reads this, don't go up. No matter what you hear, don't." An icy hand touched my shoulder. The pen fell from my hand. The hand on my shoulder tightened, cold, firm, inhuman. I turned around slowly. The woman was behind me, so close I could feel her breath, cold, odorless, as if there were no lungs functioning inside. Her white eyes pierced mine. "You understand now," she whispered. I tried to back away, but my body wouldn't respond. It was as if it were trapped, paralyzed. The silhouettes drew closer, forming a circle around me. I recognized the uniforms, different hospitals, different cities, but all paramedics, all those who came before me. "Why?" I managed to whisper. "Why are you doing this?" The woman tilted her head the wrong way, like a bird studying its prey. "The house needs." Her voice was now multifaceted, as if several people were speaking through it. "It has always needed someone who comes to save, someone who comes to help." She smiled. Her mouth opened even wider, revealing a bottomless darkness. "You are the best, so full of will, of hope, of life." My stomach churned. "We didn't die here." One of the silhouettes spoke, a muffled, distant voice. "We became part of the house." Another silhouette approached. I could see the face now, young, maybe in his early 20s, empty eyes. "You're going to join us," she said. "And then, we'll wait for the next one." "No." I tried to move, my fingers clenched. "No." The woman placed her icy hand on my face. Her touch burned. It was so cold. "It's already happening," she whispered. "Can you feel it?" And I felt it. My legs were numb. I couldn't feel them anymore. The numbness went up my thighs, my waist, my chest. I looked down. My skin was becoming translucent, similar to the silhouettes. "No, this isn't real. This can't be real." My voice came out weak now. "As real as you choose to believe." The woman laughed. A dry, humorless sound. The stack of papers on the table caught my attention. At the top, a new leaf had appeared, written in my own handwriting, but I hadn't finished writing. I dragged myself to the table, fighting against the paralysis that gripped my body. I picked up the sheet of paper with hands that no longer felt like my own. Yes, my name is Lucas. I arrived at 2:37 a.m. I wasn't the first. I read the accounts. I went upstairs. I found her. I tried to run away. I couldn't. Now I'm writing this, but I'm no longer in control of my hands. My heart raced. The house is consuming me. I can feel it. My memories are becoming blurry. My name. What was my name again? Tears streamed down my face. If anyone reads this, please, don't come. No matter the phone number, no matter the address. If it's 1847 Hollow Creek Road, don't come. The handwriting was shaky. I'm still here. We all are. Waiting. Always waiting. And when you arrive, the sentence stopped. I looked at the pen in my hand. I didn't remember picking it up again. The woman was next to me now. Finish, she ordered. My hand moved on its own. Writing. We'll be waiting for you too. The pen fell. The sheet was placed on top of the pile. Ready for the next one. My body was no longer mine. I felt myself being pulled back, into the shadows, to the corners of the room where the silhouettes awaited. I tried to scream. No sound came out. I turned around one last time, and I saw the front door open, alone, as if inviting the next victim. The house was ready. It always would be. 3 weeks later, the radio made a hissing sound. Unit 7, we have a call. Elderly woman, possible stroke. Address, 1847 Hollow Creek Road. Are you available? A tired voice replied. Unit 7 confirming. On the way. Inside the house, in the shadows of the living room, 8 silhouettes waited. One of them, the most recent one, still wearing her recognizable uniform, looked at the stack of papers on the table. And he waited, as I always would, forever. Because the house never let anyone leave. And there was always, another paramedic, another call, another victim. I'm still here. And if you hear that call, you'll be there too. If you listen to the end. You're already one of us. Subscribe so you don't miss the next whisper.